We want to bring in right now Vanessa Fraction, who has worn a lot of hats. She's a comedian, a TV personality, and also a certified self-defense instructor and a creator of what she calls kicks and comedy. Vanessa, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Zach.
All right, Vanessa. So let's start with this. Tell us a little bit about your background, because you really kind of exist in a lot of different kind of spaces, but you managed to meld them all together.
Yeah, I'm an entertainer, which, and as a female entertainer on the road a lot, I had to quickly learn how to have a lot of situational awareness and to be aware of my surroundings because I'm out quite late at night and I travel alone quite a bit. And unfortunately, I was randomly attacked by one of my coworkers, actually. And so you never know when these types of things happen. One of the things that you want to do is be prepared. And that's why I got into self defense to help other women be prepared for when unfortunate things happen. You know, it's best to work under when you're under stress to have a plan. And a lot of it happens with having that muscle memory. And so self-defense classes are really great at teaching you, one, to how to look out for certain things, and then when something happens, how to respond to it.
Vanessa, I'm so sorry to hear about that situation with your coworker. I'm glad that it seems you are okay, and we're glad that you're here with us now. For folks who are out there, they're thinking about, well, what can I do to stay safe? What can I do to be situationally aware? What advice would you give them?
I would say that situational awareness is on trend right now. It's in style. So being very aware of what's going on around you. It could be something as simple as making sure that your headphones are down low, or just making sure that you know what route you're going to take. Also being comfortable with understanding your gut, and trusting your gut. And if you feel like you need to make a move or go in a different way, or to also use your voice as a weapon, or whatever it is that you have to I'll be willing to do that.
For somebody who's watching and they're thinking, I feel like I know a little bit, but I'd like to learn more. I want to get more skilled and just a little more savvy in the tools I have to protect myself. What would you suggest? Where can they go to train up?
Oh, there are lots of self-defense classes that are available. I was trained under Divas in Defense, which is a really, really great program that's not only here in Atlanta, but across the country. Again, programs like mine where we use improv, which is something that's, again, where you're saying being situationally aware, we'll do role playing so that you will know what to do, and you'll learn basic strikes and basic also ways to get out of I'm so sorry, I'm a little bit tongue twisted right in this moment.
No,
But you'll
it's
learn
great.
strikes, punches. You'll also learn how to get out of different uh, uh, things that Lord, if you are attacked, there's different ways to get out of it, and you can learn that through different self-defense classes. You can go to your local boxing gyms and things like that offer that. And again, with everything right at the palm of our hands, it's a quick Google to find a very good safety class that's near you. And it's great to do that, again, because you'll have that muscle memory. You'll know what to look out for, and you'll know how to respond in those certain situations. But right now, with the heightened activity here in Atlanta, the best thing to do is to have a plan, even a safety plan. If something goes wrong, do you know where the exits are? Do you know which way that you would go? Is it possible that you could have a friend with you so that you can look out for each other? If you're out jogging, making sure that you're paying attention to everything that's around you and not just what your activity is.
You get at something really important there that I want to spend a moment on, and I ask you this: how important is it to think through these things ahead of time, particularly when you're going into a big event? We have the World Cup coming here, but there are always, whether you're going to a sporting event, a theater event, a comedy show, anything, when you're at a big crowd, there are so many distractions around you. How
Yes.
helpful, how important is it to think through what you're going to do if, God forbid, the worst happens and you are in a situation where you've got to protect yourself, to have that in the back of your mind ahead of time, as opposed to trying to come up with a plan on the fly if something does go wrong?
Yeah, I believe that your brain and paying attention is the most important weapon that you have in these type of situations, because again, we keep using the word random. It could happen at any time. So making sure that we are walking confidently. That's a plan. Making sure that we're not paying attention to our phones and looking up unless it's important. That call can wait. The same as like when you're in the car, texting can wait. Whatever that is, your safety is paramount. So I think that being situationally aware again, paying attention to what's going on around you, understanding if you're having that gut feeling that something's going wrong, having a safety plan is the most important thing, because when you're stressed, your mind's going all over the place. And when you already know what you're going to do, or you've already scoped out the exit, or you've already scoped out the closest police officer or uniformed help person, beside you, I think that that will help you just that much more. If you're alerting your friends that, hey, I think something's awry, they can be prepared to move with you as well and get through the crowd a heck of a lot easier. So when you're not as panicked because you are prepared, that's the most important. Being preventative is the most important.
We're short on time here, but Vanessa, I want to end with this. We're having this conversation about getting prepared, taking classes if you feel like that's appropriate for you. Do you ever, in your conversations with folks, encounter people saying, well, I've thought about this, but for XYZ reason, I've just never taken the step to actually proactively start planning out or taking lessons? I wonder what the biggest inhibition you hear about is, and then what you say to folks to, I'd imagine, encourage them to go ahead and do take those proactive steps.
I think that the thing I hear is that sometimes they just don't think about that. I mean, we go through fire safety and things like that, and it's public safety that we sometimes maybe miss because it's so, so many different things can go on. But again, when you're in these situations, I sometimes play a game with how would I get out of here? What would be my exit strategy? So I hear I think most people just don't think about the fact that you can have a safety plan. You can think about who would I call in case I'm in an emergency, if I get attacked or something like that, or where would I go? Where's the closest business to me? There's so many different things that you could actually do to be prepared when you're out and about that I think people just don't think about. And sometimes it seems so common sense that we don't put enough attention on it. Even something as simple as having your keys out and ready, as you're moving about, so you're not all in your purse or in your pockets if you're a gentleman or whoever, I think it's so common that you don't think about it all the time.
Everything that you need to know, in particular what it means for your wallet, the state budget, and whether this kind of relief might come back. Dylan Brewer is joining us. He is an assistant professor in Georgia Tech School of Economics. Dylan, glad to have you on this morning. So we do want to ask you this. When the state pauses the gas tax, who really benefits first? Is it us? Is it the consumers, the gas stations, or the distributors, or even maybe the economy in a broader scale?
Yeah, so there is going to be a split, basically. So when the tax comes off, it's not that prices are going to go down by the full value of the tax. There's actually going to be a split, about 22 cents a gallon in a price reduction that's going straight to the drivers, and about 11 cents per gallon that's going to go to the gas stations and the supply chain. So you could imagine, the state is handing out this coupon that says we're going to give 33 cents off at the pump, but there's going to be this split between the gas station and the driver.
Yeah, and we're going to see these prices start to come up little by little. So is it fair for consumers to blame the gas tax if we start to see the prices rise over the next few weeks? Or are oil prices and just the simple summer demand also big factors?
Yeah, there's a lot going on, obviously. So, right now oil prices are lower than they were at their peak, but we're going to have summer demand that's going to drive prices back up. So it's going to be complicated, but the gas tax coming back on is definitely going to raise prices relative to what they could be without the tax. But of course, if we don't have the gas tax, then we're missing out on revenues that are used to work on roads and bridges and other infrastructure.
So Governor Kemp has decided not to extend the gas tax. He did it twice, but said not this time. What economic conditions would make another suspension more likely now?
So I don't know exactly, what Governor Kemp was thinking about when he made his decision, but I would imagine that he's looking at the price of gasoline. It's starting to come down. The goal was, let's soften the blow of this really, really huge price increase that we saw over the last few months, and make it easier for households to absorb this shock. Okay, we've absorbed the shock, the prices are starting to come down. He wants to get the gas tax back on so that we can keep maintaining our roads and bridges. So I think that's what he's thinking about. The other thing that he's probably considering is, he wants to be able to use this tax holiday again if prices start to rise again. We don't know what's going to happen in global oil markets. That's something that no one can predict. So Governor Kemp is probably hoping that he can use this tax break again if the prices shoot up.
And we've heard so much about the surplus here in Georgia. So is this at all a budget issue right now? Does when you continue to suspend the tax, does it create a budget uncertainty here in Georgia, or is that too early to really talk about?
It's too early to talk about because we don't know what the rest of the fiscal year will end up looking like. But this could, if we have the gas tax suspension for long enough, this could eat into that surplus, and then we might not get that nice check that we've kind of gotten accustomed to over the last 2 years or however long that we've received that.
We are talking about bringing in drones to schools here in Georgia to help address active shooter situations that we never want to see present. However, we know that this is happening all over the country. So joining me now is the CEO of Campus Guardian Angel. I love the name. That is the company that's going to be behind the first active shooter suppression system designed for schools. So tell me more about how this is going to work. We're bringing in Justin Marshtian right now to talk about how this works. Tell us about the Campus Guardian Angel.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. So what we do is we put drones with less lethal effects. We pre-stage them into the schools, and we're able to fly them from 1,000 miles away. So from our central ops center in Austin, our goal, we can respond in 5 seconds, be on a threat in 15 seconds, and degrade or incapacitate in a threat in 60 seconds at any school in the state of Georgia.
And so these drones here, they're actually going to be remotely headquartered. This is very interesting here. How do you ensure that someone hundreds of miles away can accurately identify and respond to a threat, without putting the innocent students at risk?
Well, we hire the best people we can possibly find. And so, my co-founder, Bill King, was in the Navy SEALs for 32 years, did a whole bunch of hostage rescue missions. We have folks from SWAT, other elements of special forces who've done lots of hostage rescue missions. And then we have 5 of the 10 top drone racing pilots in the nation in our team. So, we're hiring the best, the Tom Cruise, if you like, of drone pilots. And so talent is a big piece of it. And then it's also situational awareness. So we look at the cameras, we have a digital twin of the place, so we kind of know where we're going. We have this Mission Impossible God's eye view of the school.
Yeah, I love that. It really makes sense when you bring in the movie reference to see the level of skill that it's going to take to get this right. I kind of want to jump back a little bit and talk about, where did this idea come from to use a drone in this way? Yeah.
So the idea really came from seeing how incredibly effective small drones were against people with guns. And they're not shooting them, they're just hitting them, albeit with some type of ordnance. But even hitting somebody with a drone is very effective. And so we kind of said, well, hey, if we could use these small drones that are very cost effective, we could put them everywhere, it would allow us to have an instantaneous elite response. And most of the death in the school shooting happens in the first 2 minutes before police get on the scene. So we were like, well, if we pre-stage the drones in the schools, just like a sprinkler system, the sprinkler system, it gets water on the fire immediately. Our goal's the same thing, but with an active shooter, we can get drones with effects on them to slow them down, to distract them, to start to, incapacitate them before police can get there. And that would save lives. In the vast majority of, all the mass shootings we've looked at, we think we'd have significantly reduced the death count, and so the parents who lost kids at places like Parkland.
Yeah, I love the sprinkler analogy. Even my producer was in the background nodding, like, yeah, that's a connection, and that really makes sense. Any word on where the Guardian Angel drones will be deployed here in Georgia, and how many?
Yeah, so we're deploying 40 boxes of 3. Now we're putting them across 5 schools with 8 in each. 8 boxes in each, so there'll be 24 drones in each school. And there's 5 districts and 5 schools that have been selected. They aren't public yet, but they will be by early next week. So we can't preempt the DOE in saying what they are, but in the next few days, it should be announced.
All right. So yeah, I think a lot of parents were wondering about that, and a lot of community members were wondering, like, well, this sounds pretty cool. Where exactly will it be? So I'm sure we'll be talking to you again here in the coming weeks as we get more information about the exact location of the rollout. Anything you think we left out about how this works, because it's so unique? We sort of want to get behind the mind of it. Anything you think is unique that maybe the general public wouldn't understand about how this is expected to work?
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of concerns that we hear from people, folks are very worried about whether AI is taking the decisions. It's not. We have a crack team of people that done hostage rescue and great pilots flying them. We get asked about, if somebody can hack it. But, we're using NSA's commercial solutions for classified reference architecture, which they use for the nation's senior leadership cell phone. So, it's not one layer. We have many security layers around it. We really designed it to be secure and not allow somebody to come in and hack it. And then ultimately, I would say, look, of all the things that are out there, this is the first technology-enabled solution that can stop somebody with a gun, other than another human with a gun. So we want to take the risk. We don't want law enforcement officers putting their lives at risk unnecessarily. But at the same time, we believe that every child in America and every child in Georgia deserve an education free from the fear of mass gun violence. And that really is the core mission of commercial side of our company, is like, look, this has gone on too long. We want every child to be safer, and we want every child to feel safer.
The future is here, folks, and it's coming to the Beltline, the future of public transit rolling into Southwest Atlanta. The Beltline is launching ATL Spoke, a free shuttle service, an autonomous shuttle designed to connect MARTA riders with the Beltline. Joining us now to talk about this new service is Joe Iacobucci, Vice President of Transit Innovation for the Atlanta Beltline. Joe, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Of course. So let's talk about ATL Spoke. What is this all about, and what's it going to do?
Yeah, so the ATL Spoke is the Beltline's first automated transit pilot. So it's a pilot program using an autonomous shuttle that will serve the residents of Southwest Atlanta, connecting the West End station on MARTA to the Beltline Southwest Trail at Lee and White. And this is an important project for us, as people have always identified that they want more ways to get to the Beltline. They don't want to use their car all the time. In addition to walking and biking on the summer months, they want to be able to access this in a way that connects to the current transit network, and that's what it's trying to solve with this last mile pilot project.
So how far does this vehicle go? And I think, you kind of started to speak to it, but why this section of all sections specifically?
Yeah, so when the MARTA Red and Gold Line was built out, Beltline was still a functioning freight corridor. So we have this legacy where MARTA rail is close to us, but it's still about a mile away. And so what this shuttle just intends to do is to close that gap. And so working with our partners at MARTA, the City of Atlanta, GDOT, and GTA, we collaborated on this solution that would provide a fast, frequent connection there. I think frequency is the operative word here. The service will be running at about every 12 minutes from noon to 10 p.m. So it's something that people can show up and they can just wait for a couple minutes, and there will be a shuttle there. And as you're aware too, Lee and White is a major node that's come up with the Beltline. It's been around for about a little bit less than a decade and has been a boon for the community, giving access to entertainment venues, most recently with opening a health clinic with Grady Health, and also a trade school too. So this will provide access for a variety of users, everywhere from people that are looking to grab a bite to workers, to also people accessing healthcare. So it's really a multitude of reasons why we identified this as a critical link within the system.
Yeah, Lee and White's a really, really cool area, so it's nice to be able to have this kind of increased access. So let me ask you, I mean, I think a lot of us have just gotten used to the idea of like Waymos, driverless vehicles or Ubers. How is this different? How autonomous is it? And, are there real life attendants built in for security measures, anything like that?
Yeah, so let me start with first, because the experience that we want people to have is a comfortable and safe experience, and with that, an attendant will always be on board. And then that attendant is there really to identify, exemplary customer service. The vehicle holds 12 passengers, so that's the primary difference is the form factor of the vehicle compared to a Waymo. Waymo is really meant to kind of replace a taxi trip or an Uber trip. This is really to move a lot of people if they want to provide access. So multiple people on there. The form factor is much larger. The vehicle is fully autonomous. Technically speaking, it's level 4 autonomy. And what's really interesting about the vehicle too is that when you ride in it, we actually have a screen where you can actually see how the autonomy works. So it shows you where pedestrians are, where other vehicles are, other objects that the vehicle navigates. But the attendant is also on board too in cases where we need to take over and have go off automation to navigate a tricky situation or weather event. That's always going to be built in there, and that's what's important about that aspect is that somebody who's trying to show up for their job on time. We always want to ensure that they're going to have a safe and reliable trip on the ETL Spoke.
So, Joe, this is free to ride, but how is it funded then?
Yeah, so we're very happy to have a partnership with GTA, who is funding the majority of this project. The rest of the project is funded with Beltline TAD dollars, and this has been underway for a couple of years now for the planning for this project. And again, as I mentioned before, we have partnership with GDOT, with City of Atlanta, and MARTA as also partners on this one. And the project will last for about 12 months here with the pilot project, and we'll evaluate where we want to go from there.
Joe, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't address some criticisms of this. A lot of people saying they would have preferred, a rail service, saying that, that's kind of what they voted for and for these tax increases and what they were promised. Is there any update on that? And what's your response to that criticism?
Sure. Yeah, and actually, it's a really good question because we have two primary missions at the Beltline in regards to transit, and that's getting people to the Beltline, which is the focus of this pilot project, and that's independent of our longer term vision of moving people around the Beltline, which is probably manifested mostly in our Beltline transit study, which happy to report that we'll be planning on wrapping that up this summer. And so these are mutually exclusive, not competitive. But what I'd also say too is that as far as we're concerned too, we see that there's multiple tools to be able to resolve or to solve both of those goals here. We need everything from safe streets to better bike lanes to coordination with MARTA to advancing this. And so we see as advancing these on multiple levels at the same time because the community, frankly, is asking for better access to the Beltline, in addition to what you mentioned as far as the long-term vision of putting transit on the Beltline as well.
So this isn't a this or that kind of situation, you're saying?
That's correct. Yeah, that absolutely. And we also see them as potential complementary in a way as well, because even with the major investment in a rail corridor, as we're planned right now in the Beltline transit study along the Beltline, we're still going to need extra access to get there. And so, unfortunately, a lot of folks feel like they don't have great alternatives to driving here. And so launching this from a couple different angles, trying a lot of different things, that's just part of what we want to do here to help unlock some of those potential transit trips that we're not capturing today.
So ATL Spoke, you mentioned, is a pilot program. Can you explain what that means and what are the markers of success? What would be the markers of success for this?
Yeah, so it's a great question because first of all, we want to evaluate how the service works. We feel very fortunate to be able to take advantage of this kind of next generation technology of running an autonomous shuttle, and so we want to learn, how it operates well. Any lessons learned as far as constraints, how we can improve the service in the future, and identify, where a solution like this could be, beneficial in the future, and frankly, where we might be better off going with different solutions or maybe a multitude of solutions. So we hope to learn that. And there's another aspect too, which is probably the more key one, which is we understand that this might be a lot of people's first time that they ever experience autonomy. So we want to make this a safe and welcoming experience, be able to gain the confidence that this could be a solution for them as an alternative to driving. And so with that, we take it very seriously. And then going back to, having the attendants on board and just making sure that we, take advantage of the communication channels that we have to make sure everybody feels comfortable. And frankly, we get a lot of ridership.
So, Joe, let's say this is wildly successful, after the pilot program wraps. Have you already identified sections where, this could potentially be expanded?
I think that's something we're trying to evaluate, throughout this pilot project as well, because, I think the one thing that we'll be able to do is, in the first phase here, going from MARTA West End to Lee and White, we have the advantage of seeing with those unique trip characteristics who's taking it. Is it a lot of workers? Is a lot of people that are going there for entertainment? Is a lot of people looking for just access to trail for recreation? So we have onboard surveys that we'll be taking throughout that. But in the fall for phase 2, we'll be expanding up to AUC in concert with the beginning of fall semester. And for that, obviously, with the 10,000 plus students plus the workers that are part of that geography, we have a tremendous opportunity to see how that works and that adopts too. So we know that there's a need, and we hear this over and over from the community that they want better options. They want other ways to access the Beltline. And so it's just kind of drilling down to some of those populations that will ride it the most and making sure that we're provisioning service where the greatest need is in the future.
All right, awesome. Anything else you want to add or mention? Anything we didn't touch on?
Just a note too, the shuttle runs every day from noon to 10 p.m. And again, we want to make this an easy experience. So just show up at one of the stops and it'll be a matter of minutes before you see a vehicle. So just on that, we want this to be, a place of joy, a place of pride for the community, and also that just creates vital connections that we're looking to provide more of in Atlanta.
We want to know about our gut health, how to get rid of that feeling that has us feeling bogged down, bloated, and foggy. Well, there are doctors who specialize in this, and come to find out, not only are the colon cancer risks and diagnoses increasing greater by the numbers for people who are under 50 years old, well, we're also seeing 50% of people seeking that information on social media and not making real doctor's appointments. So you know what? There's a doctor in the house, and I have her here with me now to talk more all things gut health. Dr. Aja McCutcheon, thank you so much for being here with us on 11 Alive streaming. Now, I want to tell you guys how this interview came to be. We met each other at Taste,
That's right.
their event for Meals on Wheels last week, and we were just talking and vibing, having, girls moments. And when she told me what she did for a living, I said, oh my gosh, I have been on TikTok researching information. I am guilty of buying hundreds of dollars in these supplements, trying to get that bloated feeling to just go away, when all the while I should have made an appointment with you in Atlanta Gastroenterology. But I'm not alone. A lot of people are doing that. Let's talk about the state of gut health in America right now.
Absolutely. And thank you for calling that out. I think we have to definitely redirect the public, and it's a pleasure to be here with you today. So here's the state of affairs in terms of gut health. 2/3 of Americans suffer with gut health issues. So it's a real problem. And naturally now, with the emergence of information on the internet, people are going there first instead of coming to see us. And so I think, the problem is the statistics are showing us that 82% of health information from the internet is actually misinformation.
Oh, ouch.
So that is the problem, especially when people are having real symptoms, right? Rectal bleeding, for example, we don't want them to ignore a symptom like that, because you spoke about colon cancer rising in young adults, and that is the #1 symptom that people present with. So imagine them, taking the time out to seek out this information on the internet rather than seeing us. There's often a delay of 6 to 8 months before they even get in with us.
Wow, and we know with any cancer diagnosis, the earlier the better.
Absolutely,
right?
yes.
To increase your chances of getting the best treatment and care.
Absolutely.
And so what actually leads to bad gut health? What are we doing that's causing us to feel this way?
Well, two things. One is our diet. We have a diet that is very high in ultra-processed foods and is very low in fiber. And fiber is probably the number one most protective intervention in terms of increasing that dietary fiber that you can do to protect your gut health. And then number two is our lifestyle. We're drinking, we're sitting, we're obese. So all of those things are contributing to some of the shifts that we're seeing in our gut health as well.
Talk about the brain-gut connection. I saw you talk about that, and I was like, wait a minute, it is me.
Yes.
It is me. Like, no wonder this is happening. It's all connected.
It is. It is all connected. So you hear about the brain-gut connection and the gut being the second brain. And the gut, in fact, sends more signals up to the brain than the brain sends down to the gut. They're born from the same cells, and so they have this constant communication. And what I tell people is when you don't feel good here, you don't feel good in your gut, and the reverse is true. When you don't feel in your gut good in your gut, you also don't feel good mentally. And there's a very strong connection between your gut health and your brain health as well as your mental health. Yep. So increased risk of depression and anxiety when you have gut health disturbances.
Is there any demographic that's impacted the most?
Yeah, you know, people, I would say Black Americans carry some of the highest, what we call stress or allostatic loads. And so we do see a lot more overrepresentation, over-indexing in that particular population, which is my population. So I, make a concerted effort to make sure that I get out in the community and educate about this particular issue.
All right, we got about a minute and a half left. Let's do a consultation.
Okay.
I can't get unbloated. It doesn't matter what I do. I feel like, I'm 5 months pregnant. I'm tired all the time, brain fog. We're in your office. What is a girl to do?
All right, the first thing I'm going to do is we're going to do a little bit of a dietary overhaul. First thing I tell patients to do is I want them to increase their dietary fiber, and I want them to get 30 plants per week, which sounds crazy, but everything counts. Fruits, vegetables, nuts, legumes, herbs, spices, so you can get there pretty quickly. The second thing I want them to do is minimize ultra-processed foods in terms of red meats in particular and lunch meats, for example.
Yes.
Hot dogs, those processed meats are class 1 carcinogens. I want them to increase their water intake and move their body every day. And I want them to try to be a little bit more mindful in terms of stress control. We all have stress, but we need to practice some mindfulness. So those are some of the early interventions that we need to do. But I like to get labs. You need a workup. We need to make sure there's nothing else going on. Bloating may not be normal. It may be a sign of something else more serious going on.
Okay.
Changes in bowel habits may be a sign of something else going on as well.
Okay, so I don't need to go to Amazon and buy a bunch of prebiotics, probiotics, and all the things.
No, ma'am. Food is going to be your best medicine, and so we should start there.
Spelman College turning to one of the nation's top leading voices in artificial intelligence and robotics to lead its next chapter. Dr. Ayanna Howard has been tapped as Spelman College's next president. She'll take over starting August 1st. And Dr. Howard joining us live now. Dr. Howard, I am so honored to have you on with us. Thank you so much, and congratulations on your appointment.
Thank you. Thank you. I am thrilled and excited. I can't tell you by how much, but it is truly a thrilling experience to have accepted this role.
So take me to the moment that you found out you had been selected to serve as the next president. What was your reaction?
So one of the things is this role is really around this whole aspect of purpose and passion. And so when I was told that I was the one that was voted on becoming the 12th president, I realized that my calling was fulfilled. My dream had been fulfilled. All of my experiences have led me to this point. And so it's something when you say, I think, it's another thing when you say, I know and the world now knows.
Yeah. As you prepare to, take over this role, what are your top priorities going to be for the college?
So one of the things is the world is rapidly changing. Everything from opportunities for Black women, for Black communities, as well as AI disrupting jobs and the workforce and society at large, and global landscape continuously shifts. And so when I think about the role of Spelman in that, one is that we can take control of that conversation. Given the liberal arts focus and the understanding humanities, along with the sciences, how do we show up for not just our Spelman students, but for the world as we all navigate this very complicated world dynamic?
Yeah. Dr. Howard, we would be here all day if I were to read off your resume, but some of the top lines, I mean, you served as a NASA engineer. You're quoted as being an AI pioneer. You have history in robotics. Talk about incredible women in STEM. And I got to say, I looked up some data, and it varies a bit, but it looks like women make up about 26 to 35% of the STEM workforce. Black women, 2 to 9%, depending on where you get your data. As a woman in STEM yourself, I mean, what do you hope that your appointment, shows maybe other young women, young Black women hoping to get into these types of industries?
So I think it's about one, me showing up as a human, understanding my role as a Black woman, but then also saying, you know what, this is what excellent looks like. And I think by being a role model to say, yes, you can do it. You can have a dream and it can be fulfilled. You just have to take that first step. I think I can do that through this role, through interacting with my Spelman students, the Spelmanites, and of course, showing up as myself and my whole self.
We played your welcome message earlier in the show, and you referred back to a time where you helped a student kind of secure funding and their education. Is that element really important to you, really working with these students and taking on this kind of new chapter in that way?
Yes, I am here in academia. The reason I choose to be in academia is because of the students. I know my responsibility is to ensure that future generations of students have the same opportunities that I've given. And as I break down barriers, as I break down the doors, I want to make sure that they can enter freely. And so I love students. They're like the fountain of youth. I always feel like I might be 19 again. Not that I want to be, but it is truly inspiring to interact with students.
Yeah. Dr. Howard, how do you think that your background with AI, robotics, everything that you've done makes you uniquely qualified to take on this position, period, and also in this time in our world?
Well, one of the nice things about being who I am and all the experience is that I don't fit in anyone's box, but I fit in everyone's boxes. And so what that means is that I can grab these elements, these experiences, these skills, and work with the faculty and staff and trustees here at Spelman to actually figure it out. Figure out how do we address AI, figure out how do we address the fact that the opportunities are being diminished, figure out how we operate in a global world. I think all of those experiences really have set me up to figure out what the different stories and skill sets that are needed for this time.
Yeah. Higher education right now is just facing a lot of challenges. Financial difficulties, low enrollment. How do you foresee Spelman kind of navigating this world that we live in?
So one of the things I think about Spelman versus others is that we have, I always compare it to a boutique entity, high quality. And so we can think about how do we refine the pedagogy? How do we redefine the curriculum so that when students graduate, not only has their passions been realized, but they also have the opportunities and the jobs. I think of higher education as a non-negotiable. What we're doing is we're teaching and training the students for the jobs of today, but also for 5, 10, 20 years ago. The skill sets that are needed for 20 years, we have no idea what those jobs are going to be, but they will have the skills to learn and adapt to ensure that they are relevant.
I want to talk to you about AI. I think there's a lot of college degrees where you go in and you know what you're going to major in and you're going to learn A, B, and C by the time you leave. AI is so quickly changing for people who might be interested in a career but are maybe overwhelmed by how quickly it's changing. And if you get into this degree, do you even know what you're going to be learning? What would you tell those folks who might be interested in this but it feels a little intimidating?
Well, so this is one of the things that we are going to do at Spelman is how do we think about your discipline, your job, what you want to do, your degree, but ensure that you understand the tools and the technology, tools that allow you to do your job. And those tools will continue to change. There is real fear. We know that. There's fear around AI, there's fear around the jobs, but I think by us taking and embracing it and being co-developers of this future, that we actually have a chance of ensuring we are successful, not just surviving, but actually thriving.
If there are high school students watching this interview right now, what would you tell them about why it's, perhaps an exciting time to join the Spelman community?
Well, one is we allow you to believe in yourself, and then we give you the tools to be successful with that belief.
Yeah, I love that. Dr. Howard, anything else you want to add or mention before I let you go?
So I mentioned that this is really a privilege and an honor, and you will see a lot more from Spelman College because we will lead the conversation in all these things that I discussed and talked about.
The diagnosis of Alzheimer's can really feel devastating, but experts say knowing early can really change what comes next. More than 7 million Americans are living with the disease, yet many people still don't know what the early stages can really look like. This morning, we're talking with Healthy Women CEO Beth Badalino and Carrie Dennis, who is living with early stage Alzheimer's. We're glad to have both of you with us this morning. So when we say early diagnosis, Beth, what are we talking about here? Fear or empowerment?
Definitely empowerment. We are launching a national campaign called This Is Alz. It's powered by Healthy Women to raise awareness about the earlier stages of Alzheimer's. Knowledge can be power.
And Beth, how do we talk about Alzheimer's honestly with our loved ones or anyone we know who may be going through this without making them feel that their life is over?
You know what, Carrie? Share your story.
Yeah. So I will say, when you get the diagnosis, it's big news. But I will say the one thing I'd like to say to anyone with diagnosis is that an early diagnosis is not the end. It's just the beginning of a different story. And an early diagnosis for me gave me the opportunity to get my affairs in order. So I look back at my mother and my grandmother that succumbed to the disease. And after they were diagnosed, it was too late for them to make their own decisions. So we spent a lot of time trying to guess what they would have wanted. And an early diagnosis for me meant I had the opportunity to not put that burden on my family, but to also make sure that the rest of my life is my choice, and the decisions that I may not be able to make in the future, I can make now.
That is so important, Carrie, just knowing early and planning early. But excuse me, when did you notice something started to feel different and you needed to go get help and get checked out?
Great question. Great question. I would say it was a few years ago, and at home it was the typical stuff, right? That you could kind of dismiss, the walking into a room and forgetting why you were there, or losing your keys or your phone. But at work, it was different. I worked in the financial services industry. I led a large department, and it was there that I really started noticing that something was wrong. So the things that were hard became harder, but much more alarming was the things that were supposed to be easy were getting harder. And when I think easy, it's something as simple as managing my calendar or writing an email. The emails became my nemesis, something that I used to do 100 a week, and something that used to take 3 minutes would take 20 minutes because I couldn't organize my thoughts.
Yeah, you were able to get it checked out early, which was so key. Beth, what role does stigma and fear play in people maybe putting off their care and delaying seeking help?
Well, we're seeing, especially with younger people, you can dismiss as Carrie said, you can dismiss the signs and symptoms and think that, and for many of us, we think of Alzheimer's as an older person's disease. And so we wanted to bring, through this campaign, we're raising awareness that Alzheimer's can be a younger person's disease. You may be living with this, you may be living with Alzheimer's and not even realize you may have the signs and symptoms. So bringing people forth who are sharing their stories and explaining how they were tested and some of the symptoms that they were going through is just sharing, so people can learn and live. And this can be, we're trying to destigmatize what it's like to live with earlier stages of Alzheimer's.
Always glad to have you here with us. So what does the Constitution give the president, and what does it give to Congress when it comes to the war here?
Well, we have to remember that the Constitution has separation of powers, so it gives each co-equal branch of the federal government, the executive, the legislative, and the judicial branch, different responsibilities. But those responsibilities overlap such that they have checks and balances over each other. So the president is commander-in-chief of the U.S. Armed Forces, which means he does get to lead the military and does get to direct military action. On the other hand, though, it is the responsibility of Congress to declare war, and because Congress has the power of the purse, it is their responsibility to budget and to allocate money for the war. So if they won't pay for a war, then the president can't have a war, even if he actually wants to have one.
You know, Andra, I mentioned earlier this is a decades-old law. Why did Congress create this in the first place?
Well, it's important to keep in mind that Congress has not formally declared war on anyone since World War II. So if we think about all of the wars that have happened in all of our lifetimes, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, what we've seen is that we've used authorized military force. And for the Vietnam War, it was the Gulf of Tonkin resolution that formalized our role in that process and sort of helped to escalate military troops there. And in particular, in 1973, President Nixon basically used that authorization to secretly bomb Cambodia without Congress knowing. And it was because of that campaign, once it became public, that Congress got worried that President Nixon was actually overstepping his bounds and overstepping what Congress was aware of our nation's involvement in Vietnam for, to say that, hey, anytime you're going to engage in a new conflict, you're going to have to let us know what's going on. And so that's kind of where the War Powers Resolution comes from.
All right, Andra, moving into the recent action that we've been talking about that's really making headlines. We know the House moved on this already, but there's still the Senate. So if the Senate doesn't follow through, what does the House vote actually do? What does it accomplish?
Well, I mean, so basically, it's important to say that Congress or that the Trump administration is going to need to come back to Congress in order to get authorization for the war in Iran. We're having this happen about now because we're now more than 100 days into this conflict. So we're past the 60-day window and we're past the 30-day drawdown window. So there are a couple of things. So right now, the Senate has passed a procedural vote, which will basically bring it onto the floor for a vote. That passed with 50 votes. They're going to need 60 votes in order for the War Powers Act to be invoked in this particular situation. And either way, Congress still does have power of the purse if they choose to not fund the Defense Department and its military action against Iran. So that's the biggest way that you can tell whether or not you have authorized use of force, is whether or not Congress is paying for things. But in terms of actually requiring the Trump administration to seek sort of formal authorization for the Iran war via the War Powers Act, they're going to need 60 senators. And so it doesn't look like that is going to happen. There could be some legal invocation involved. Those who study this from a legal standpoint have noticed that in the past, the courts have declined to get involved in these types of situations. But I think that there could be, an issue in particular if the Trump administration uses money that was authorized for something else in order to fund the war in Iran. So we have to wait and see what will happen. But just given the legislative hurdles that need to be overcome in order for the War Powers Act to be invoked here, it does seem like there's an uphill climb in the Senate to be able to get 60 senators to be able to support that resolution when it finally does come up for a vote.